Good evening, everybody. It's AUS Property Investors Facebook Live on a Wednesday night. We bring the big names, and we have the big names tonight. The biggest name, the pun intended, the elephants. Not you're not an elephant, but elephant in the room, and we have the big fun. So how are you doing, Veronica?
Yeah, let's just do that again if we can. Oh wait, we're live.
Yeah. Oh, hi boys. This is the elephant speaking.
This is going to be a good session. I am excited. How was your day today, Veronica?
Oh God, I can't remember it already. It's just gone. It was good. It was good. I recorded actually a couple of podcasts episodes for Your First Home Buyer Guide today. So that had my mind in why do property prices go up or down? You know, that's one topic that we covered today. So I've been, talking all day, and I'm going to continue by the sound of it.
Wow.
Perfect. Let's take it on into the night.
Thanks for coming on, man. I mean, it must take a lot of energy to go through all these kind of, because it does take, you got to really bring the energy when you're doing these things. Otherwise, it doesn't quite come off. So thanks for coming on. How about you, Joe? How are you going?
Mate, my day's fantastic. I had a great day. I've been just doing Zooms, just Zoom. I've been Zooming all over the place. I love it. Don't even need to move. Yeah. That's why I got this special racing chair. It goes for me. So I'm super pumped. I'm really excited. I don't do too much research for this, but I've done a lot of research because I'm really excited. Veronica has a whole heap of knowledge in the industry and a solid expert. So I'm excited. That's to say the least. But how are you, Jeff? How are you?
I'm good, man. My day was actually quite relaxed. Like I feel like your days are like intense. Like you're recruiting people, you're doing all these things left, right, and center. And I'm just like sitting at home, tapping away. Occasionally, I go for a walk and I go inside. And I sort of it's pretty relaxed day. But I want to say to people out there, throw the comments, throw the likes, throw the questions. To go know that Veronica, she doesn't hold back. She listen to some of her podcasts. She's amazing with the value she brings. So she's an absolute resource to be able to ask that question. So on that resource notion, I want to hear, Veronica, what is your life hack?
My life hack is learning how to apologize.
Oh, jeez. How do you do that? I need to know.
Yeah, how do you do that? Well, you got to mean it for starters, and you can't do "I'm sorry if I hurt you" or "I'm sorry if I offended you."
I get in trouble for that one.
Yeah. Learning to apologize with empathy without actually losing any power. You know what I mean? Like, so I actually recently, I was watching a show. Have you ever watched a show called Explained on Netflix?
Yes, it's fantastic. Every Friday. It comes out every Friday. Got to watch it.
It's a really, really cool show. That's my life hack, really. Watch Explained. But anyway, they did an episode on apologies that I watched the other night, and it was about 9 aspects of an apology. And a good apology doesn't need all 9 aspects, but it requires some of that empathy and some integrity and some explanation as well, without being defensive. Actually explaining context and things like that. And so I just think learning to apologize well, it's freeing, it's like people, I swear politics would be better if people learn to apologize. So that's my life hack.
What are your thoughts on admitting you're wrong though as well? Is an apology saying that you were wrong in that situation, or is it just saying that you weren't right? Like what?
Ooh, isn't that? I got a philosopher in our midst. I think, look, sometimes obviously you can be wrong, and look, because I'm bolshy, this is for me, my personal life hack is really important because I'm bolshy. Sometimes I talk before I think, and then I think out loud, and then I realize what I said first was wrong. So the best thing I can possibly do is actually very quickly catch it and go, you know what? I actually was wrong. Now I've thought about it further. I actually think differently about that. And I just honestly, when I hear somebody do an honest apology, my impression of them just goes through the roof. I just think it's an amazing thing, and I wish our politicians could do it more often. Like Gladys, maybe not locking us down early enough, perhaps, maybe, like just freaking say it. It's hard. No one knows what they're doing, like it's much better than trying to justify the whole time.
Yeah, that's an interesting one.
That's funny. It's actually a really good point. That's a really good point. I'm going to roll right into my life hack. Sorry, Jeff, because it kind of ties into that. And I had a great life hack, which I'm going to bin now because I've come up with a much better one. There is a fantastic, talking about like power, like the and mental agility and, you know, being a little bit more powerful is there are two things. One, I had an interview the other day interviewing people to come into our business. And this girl started out being like, look, I'm really good at this, but I'm not so great at this. So this end bit is not going to be any good. So I apologize for that in advance to let you know that it's not going to be any good. And she was 100% right. She was like, this end bit, the beginning bit was fantastic and she killed it. And then the end bit wasn't as bad as she said. So I was expecting a train wreck, but she absolutely nailed it. So if you can come in and say, hey, look, it's not going to be the best thing ever. My bar is going to drop really low. And she just excelled at it. So I'm like, yeah, you're perfect. Let's do it.
Just manage your expectations.
It's the Chris Voss never split the difference, eh? I mean, geez. It's kind of like going in and saying to the hotel person, this is going to be the worst part. This is going to be the worst day of your life. And then it's just asking for a discount. And that's what, yeah. And it's like, well, okay, that was, yeah. So interesting. You know, did you get the job though? I mean, maybe she did. Don't talk. If you've told her,
got the job, lucky girl.
Okay, yeah. If she's watching, then congrats.
Sorry, no more. There's no more job vacancies. Sorry, guys. Actually, so
that's a good one.
What about you, Jeff? What's your life hack, mate?
Oh, I feel inferior. I'm sorry. I feel, yeah, but no. So I taxed my life hack from a podcast I was listening to with, and it's from Tom Penner. So if you're listening, Tommy, come on the show because Joe's a big fanboy, and I don't know. I'm sure you've got stories with Tom, but so he said. So his story was, and I don't know how much people know about Tom, about his kind of journey through cancer. But so he said you have about 4,000 weeks in your life. So sort of if you figure that out, so I think the average age of people is about 80 to 82. So the hack there is you to think about, well, you got to make your week, you got to sort of make your week worthwhile, because we kind of think we just get to the end of the day or end of the week and we say, oh, you know, what did I actually do that week? Or what was meaningful? Did I spend time with the kids? Did I spend time with the family? So my life hack, it's a little bit morbid, I know, it's super morbid, but it's just to think, well, crap, we don't actually have a lot of time. We have more time, we think, but not as much as we'd like to think. So there's that 4,000 week thing. So I was thinking about it. I was like, crap, I only have like 2,500 or 2,800, whatever it was. I was working out how many weeks I'd left. I was like, what am I going to do this week to move the ball forward? So that's my little life or anti-life hack, whatever you want to call that, Joe.
There you go. Okay. Exciting times. There we go. Well, I hope people are happy here and watch the rest of this session, because it's going to be insightful, it's going to be valuable, it's going to add to your life, and you're going to love it. So let's jump into our first sponsor, and then we can introduce this wonderful lady that we have here, Veronica. Let's do it seamlessly. Scott Agate. You would have seen him on the 7 p.m. project campaigning against agent underquoting. Scott is an expert negotiator through and through. Every single day, he is negotiating with real estate agents to get the best price for his clients. To give you a bit of a background, Scott has been working in real estate since 1995, and as a real estate agent, built up 3 Bell franchises. He was the guy teaching the agent all the tips and tricks to get the most out of the buyers. However, Scott realized that there was actually no one on the side of the person buying the property, and he saw them constantly letting emotion get in the way and paying way over for the property. And that's why he created Hello House, Australia's first property negotiation as a service business, where he is on the side of the buyer. In hot markets like we have now, you need absolutely every single edge that you can get. These agents are trained professionals, and they are there to get the most money out of you, which is why you need to have an expert of your own in your own corner. The way it works, you find the property, then Scott will come in at the negotiation phase and take over for you. This is how you'll get the property for its true value. He'll ensure that you don't overpay. He comes in, knocks the real estate agent down on price. No more agent games, no more tricks, no more tactics. He is there for you. Scott has been kind enough to offer us an amazing discount on his service, and I've personally just seen a friend pay $20,000 more on a property because of these agent games. Reach out to him with the link below. It'll be the best property investment you will ever make.
I'm not seamless. I was muted. Oh, fire! I still haven't worked out the Zoom situation. Oh, I know this is not Zoom, but so yeah, that's it's funny we talk before I get into introducing the person or the absolute sort of guest and superstar we have with us tonight. I just saw somebody talking about where to buy, and they mentioned suburbs, and I'm like, what do I do with that? And I was like, the exact thing you're talking about. Everybody wants to know how to do this. What we were talking about before the show, actually. But before we get into that, I want to give you. I wrote up a lot of notes tonight, and so you've done more things. I don't know how you've been able to fit all these things in and still be able to sleep, Veronica. So you've been a location Australia. There's a whole. I think I'm only going to pull out some of these because otherwise we'd spend an hour just telling me about all the things you've done. So, and you were a real estate agent prior to becoming a BA buyer's agent, and you've also formed that Good Deeds Property Buyers in 2009. So that's I didn't even know buyer's agent for a thing back in 2009. I mean, I suppose it was.
I'm late to the party.
Yeah. But and the other thing is as well, you've been asked to present at things and be judges of things like Real Estate New South Wales Awards judge. REBA, you're part of the REB Real Estate Board, Women in Real Estate. So, and you're a keynote speaker at a lot of events as well. You've done so many things. You're also, I suppose, the thing I found most interesting. You've got a Bachelor of Design in Visual Communication and a Master of Commerce. So, I think you wear many hats. But out of those things, is there something I've missed? And which of those things are you most proud of?
God, I sound impressive, don't I?
It's quite the CV.
Well, look, actually, there's an echo there. I'm not sure if it's me or you.
Probably you. Sorry, you might need the headphones.
I might need to put my headphones back on. Okay. So
sounds fun.
What am I most proud of? I actually am really proud of the fact that I better be careful saying this. I have a really good reputation. And the reason I have a really good reputation, it's scary saying this, is because like when people talk to me now, they go, "Oh my God, it's just like you sound exactly like you do on television, or you sound exactly like you do on the podcast." I'm like, that's because I'm not putting on an act. I am who I am. I truly believe what I say, and I'm not trying to flog anything. I'm just actually a home buyer academy. I'm trying to flog education, but I mean, at the end of the day, I'm not banging any drums to get people to do what I want them to do. I truly want to help, and I truly want to put a spotlight on this industry and show things up for what they are and how they are. And it's a great industry in many ways, but there's a lot of misinformation out there as well. So I'm actually really proud that I've got to this point in my life. I'm proof in the pudding, and then I enjoy a good life because of the decisions that I've made regarding property, not just being in the industry, but I also made mistakes and I've lost opportunity in that time. So I haven't done it perfectly. And I just love to be able to share that to people so they can learn from my mistakes.
I love it. Love a genuine answer. Appreciate that. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, and I think that's why I've got you on the show, because we only I think I don't think there's anybody we've interviewed that I wouldn't sort of it's kind of the most pub test to me. Would I have a beer, or would I have a scotch, or would I have a lemon squash with this person, or would I sit down for dinner with them? And I would sit down for dinner with all the people we've had on. So because otherwise, I don't think I think it's all about integrity as well. But there
you go. Well, I want to wind things back. Let's unpick this CV and let's go back to how did you actually get into property and property investing in the first place?
Well, I'll tackle they're two different things, right? So
two different things, yeah.
The getting into the property industry, as in getting into real estate as a profession, was because I had a failed business. Okay, so in my yes, I went and did 2 degrees before I was out of my 20s. And, I had my big goal, believe it or not, early on was just to earn 6 figures. That was that was my life goal. I just want to earn 6 figures. So by the time I was in recruitment in my sort of mid to late 20s, I had earned 6 figures and I was earning 6 figures. And then I had bought a property. I'll get to that. And then I hated my job, and I did what so many people want to get into property for, because they hate their jobs too, and they actually want to replace their income. Whereas I went the opposite way. I bought a property and then I went and bought a cafe.
Yeah.
Wow.
I had
Wow.
really good earning potential and I was earning very good money. I was doing well, but I hated it. Went and bought the cafe. I made every mistake under the sun, blew all the money that I made in recruitment, ended up with a debt because my parents had gone guarantor for me, right?
Whoa.
Ended up with a
Big
debt.
one.
And that's how I got into real estate, was because I needed to go and earn some money to pay back the debt. And I
Wow.
couldn't face going back into recruitment. And I was always interested in property and the sales process, because I got into real estate as a sales agent, right? And I did that for 6 years. And the sales process is very similar to the recruitment process. You know, you go out, you find your client, he's got a job, and then you go find out candidates and you interview them and you put them together, and hopefully they'll like each other and they'll stick for the guarantee period. That's sort of nuts.
Yeah,
with
for 3
property,
months.
you don't actually have to get your candidate to like your client. You know, I mean, you don't. They just have to like the house, you know, or the apartment. So I did really well in selling. I took to it like a duck to water. It was just like I was born to it. I really felt. I mean, I still had to learn, God, but I really just got it. It just clicked for me, and I much preferred it because the buyer didn't have to like the seller. But after 6 years, it was Groundhog Day for me. My brain was aching because I wanted to think more, and I had my daughter at that point anyway. Took a year off, and then I got into the buyer's side of the equation, which does tap into all of my critical thinking skills, which we will no doubt talk about as tonight goes on. But my first sorry, go on.
Yeah. Let's go into before we go into the investing side of things. Was it not a massive risk to go into the buyer's agent side of things 9 years ago? Like, I feel like buyer's agents only have, started to really.
Joe's maths is not quite
steam.
up to scratch there. We're talking, that's more than 9 years ago, Joe. That's we're talking 13 years ago.
Well, actually, I went into it in 2007. So yeah, 14 years ago.
Okay.
I didn't set up my business. I didn't set up my business immediately. There's another story, actually, because I did contract to some other buyer's agents who, when the GFC hit, well, you know how they say when the tide goes out, you see who's not wearing underpants?
Warren Buffett, yeah.
They owed me a lot of money and they didn't pay me any of that money. And so I was like, oh, bugger. I've got these clients, and I guess I better set up a business. So I was a reluctant business owner or business setter-upper back in 2000, the very beginning. I set up Good Deeds in February 2009. So literally in the wake of the GFC. And so, yeah, there's a risk, I guess. But, to be honest, I was also working part-time, as in that was my part-time job. I was pretty fortunate that, I didn't have to earn big dollars at the time, so I was able to do it. I had a small child and I was able to take my time doing it. So once again, though, I just started setting up systems and, looking at things differently and approaching it differently. Had to get out of my mind the sales agent mentality, because the sales agents think every property is good, just got at the right price. And it's not true. So, yeah.
That's your investor hat. So how did you get into property investing?
Well, so my first property, I was in recruitment, so I was earning with good money. And an ex-boyfriend of mine had said to me, oh, you should buy an apartment. I've got a friend who's got this development.
Don't like the sound of this.
No,
don't like it. He's an ex-boyfriend for a reason.
Yeah, exactly. His friend's got this development. He's got these one-bedroom apartments that you should check out, right? So on Cleveland Street, if anyone knows. Well, Chippendale.
Oh, Chippendale.
And this is a long time before Chippendale or Redfern were anywhere near groovy. And Cleveland Street, the main road, let's face it, not good. I had the smarts to walk into this development. I just went, oh, this is not good. No way. I'm not buying any of these. So I didn't. But I did go looking, but I never, ever popped my head over the parapet and thought, what else is there around? I just looked at new properties. All the things I tell people not to do, absolutely I did. And I bought a studio apartment which was technically off the plan, but it was finished. So I got to actually go into it and check it out. It was well laid out, and it was really, though, you know, if you stood in the corner and swiveled your heads, you saw the whole place. And look, it was. I lived in it for a year. I outgrew it in 5 seconds. You know, then I partnered up with someone else, and you know, and then it was just ridiculous. So I lived in it for a year. Then I rented it out very well. And you know, people talk about they got to get high yield. Well, this got high yield. Great rent. Banks changed their lending in that period of time. So when 5 years later, I bought a house with the guy became my husband then, and couldn't keep it, even though it was positive cash flow by this stage. Couldn't keep it because banks had changed their lending rules and it was under 50 square meters. So if it was more than 50 square meters, I would have been able to keep it because it was paying for itself, like as in costing me nothing.
Cash.
Technically costing me nothing. But I had to sell it to actually buy a house. And also it went up in value a little bit, but not a lot because, of course, once other buyers can't buy it, well, it's hard for
Makes it tough.
buyers.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So there you go. That was my first foray into property. I didn't lose, but I didn't gain as much as I could have if I had just actually looked at other options.
Gee, the Sydney market. I mean, Joe and I sort of missed a bit of a boom ourselves, and sort of the area that I bought in. If I'd have bought here compared to another area, would have doubled my money compared to. I'm now looking at maybe a $20,000 to $30,000 gain, maybe if I'm lucky. So that kind of dovetails into our question about you don't always, and I think this will be one of the elephants in the room, the centerpieces of our conversation. What is it that what are some of the missteps, or what are some of the myths around you always make money in property, and tell us more about that?
Look, some people think that I'm negative, you know, and I'm actually right.
You're doing exactly what that girl's done. You're lowering the bar. She's not that negative.
I'm a pragmatist, I say. But anyway, there is this report. Let's just start off here. There is a report that is put out every quarter by CoreLogic, and it's my favorite report. It's called the Pain and Gain Report. And
I want to bring it up on the screen if we can.
Sorry, what was that?
I don't think
No, they're not.
bring it up on the screen. You got to pay them.
Yeah, you got to pay them.
Right.
They always put out some media releases with some good summaries. So Eliza Rowan is the young economist that authors that report now. Very smart, Eliza Rowan. I very much like Eliza.
We'll have her on the podcast, or whatever this thing is, the live sessions soon.
Yeah.
Soon.
So the thing about the Pain and Gain report, what it does, it tracks how many properties have sold at a loss or at a gain in the previous quarter. Right, so the June quarter one will probably be the next one that comes out, and roughly, 10% of all Australian properties sells every quarter for a loss. So you can
sell at a loss.
Sells at a loss every single quarter. You will see that there is a significant proportion of property across Australia. So what this does, and you can see a sample report there, it breaks it down by region, so you can actually see the difference. So, you know, I can just see on the top line, for instance. So let's look at
zoom in, Jeff.
Zoom in. So there you go, sample report. So like if you look at a really bad example, regional South Australia, well, 21.4% in that quarter, this sample report was done, sold at a loss.
Oh.
That's what it's saying. I thought that was a percentage of how much they lost.
No, that's how many.
Yeah, I see it's 100%. Yeah, wow.
Yeah. So the thing is, though, okay, so let's just take that for an argument's sake. But in that previous quarter that report is for, let's say Hobart. Let's pick Hobart. 8.8% of properties in that quarter, houses that is, not units. You can see it's split between houses and units. 8.8% of houses in the quarter that's reporting was sold at a loss in that quarter. Now, the average across Australia is it ranges sort of between 9 and 12%, roughly. Like, it doesn't matter whether the market's going up or down, whatever. It's usually sits in that band.
Yep.
That means, let's say, roughly 10% of all property in Australia sells at a loss every single quarter. Now, that's a top line loss. If I bought that property for 500,000 and I sold it for 501, it's counted as a gain.
Yeah.
If I bought that property for 500,000 and I spent 100,000 renovating it and I sold it for 550,000, it's registered as a gain. If I bought that property for 500,000, I paid my stamp duty, and which is roughly say 23,000 or whatever in New South Wales anyway, and I sold it for 510,000, it's still registered as a gain. So there is a lot of property that is sold that actually didn't sell at a profit that is not captured in that. Not only that, so that's just the ones that did sell. Let's think about all the properties that are being held by people across this nation that if they did sell, would sell at a loss.
That'd be a whole heap.
And then, as if that's not bad enough, and we can't even measure this, right? But let's just say it's more than 10%. If that's not bad enough, let's think about what you said earlier, Jeff. If only I'd invested my money somewhere else for that period of time, what position could I be in that would be different to that? There's opportunity cost you got to add to it. So, and this is a reality check that I believe every property investor needs to understand before they invest in property, is that it's not a guarantee, path to wealth.
Yeah. And I think that's a great message, because for me, particularly we're seeing properties go up 2 to 3% per month. I'm going to say property. We're talking about median house price. We're not talking about all properties. We're talking about the average, not the average, because the average is mean. So the middle of that property. So it's actually being pulled up by there's a whole bunch. We could talk about medians to the cows come home, but about the floors in a median. But I think that's a message that people have to bear in mind, because at some stage, the market will cool down, and it's sort of showed it's slowed in growth. But and I mean, people in WA and to some extent people in the Northern Territory, or a lot of extent people in the Northern Territory will be able to tell this story better than most. That they've sort of seen a flat or a declining market for close to a decade. So you sort of say, well, you got to be but I suppose bear with us, people. There's a bit of pessimism or a bit of pragmatism, another P word here, but we will get to some more sort of light-hearted news. We will return, but it's a great message. Your thoughts, Joe?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's being realistic though, isn't it? Like, you can't just jump in and, like, this is, I posted just in the group today, like, if you're not investing, you're losing money, which is more of like, let's get a wriggle on, but it's also don't dive headfirst into anything. You've got to find something that is actually going to grow, that actually has some of those fundamental factors involved. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck with, your 60, 70, 80, $100,000 deposit stuck in an asset that's not growing, which leaves, a sliding door moment for you to have gotten a real good asset that's then growing an extra $100,000 and completely shifts. So I'd be interested to hear, Veronica, maybe this has taken it a little bit different, but what are some of the fundamentals that you truly believe in that is going to allow capital growth? So what the 88% have that the others don't?
I fully believe that property is a long game, okay? And this is what people are, so much data is focused on, history, right? And so history, might be a predictor of the future, but it also might not be. But also so many of these top 10 lists that you see everywhere, and I love suburb trolls, by the way.
Oh, God.
Love it. Because they talk about these ridiculous lists and what a joke they are. And they're not really a joke for some people if they do follow them. But there's all these sort of the dreamers, I want to buy the place that's going to go up, the next hotspot, right? And it seems logical, of course. Why would you, invest money and then not want that, right? But the problem is that what people are thinking, they're making short-term decisions with a long-term problem you know. And so property needs to be treated with a bit more respect, you know, instead of this sort of quick gain and this sort of mentality about, you know, it's a quick in, quick out, or even that if you get a quick gain, it's going to be a long-term sustainable gain. That's where people go wrong, because the magic of compounding is wonderful. Was it the eighth wonder of the world? You know, that little tiny snowball at the top of the mountain. If your snowball is, you know, if you basically roll your snowball down a mountain, it's got big rocky patches on it, it's not going to gather snow while it's running over the rocks. You know, it's going to melt a bit. Maybe you get a bit smaller and get wonky.
You get an ice cube.
You know, I love a metaphor, and this is the first time I've used this one, by the way, in terms of the Rocky Mountain. But the thing is, though, that if you don't understand what a good asset is and how to identify a good location for long-term sustainable growth, and then how to choose a good asset in that location, then you are going to be losing money, because you are going to be missing opportunities. And so there's still risk associated with buying property. Let me tell you, even if you find a great location, there's still risk. But you can minimize your risk if you're very careful about the location. And then when you have narrowed down whatever location you've decided to buy in, that you actually learn what constitutes a good asset in that location.
Yeah, one of the key things there that you said was sustainable, long-term sustainable growth. How do you find long-term sustainable growth? Like, what are some of the key drivers?
Some of the key drivers is, why do people want to live there? Right. Now, if the only reason somebody wants to live somewhere is because it's close to work, and the minute that work dries up or the industry goes bust or whatever, they move out of there, they hightail it out of there because they don't want to live there for any other reason, then that's a bad reason to invest, and it's unsustainable. Because you know, so you move. This is why, you know, and look, let's face it, let's talk about the most sustainable markets in the country for starters. Now, not everyone can afford to buy in the most sustainable markets. I get that, but look at the principle around this and apply this elsewhere. So if you look at inner Sydney or inner Melbourne, right? 5K radius.
Can we take a step back? When we say inner city, inner Melbourne, how far do you define that? Because everybody defines that differently. What are we talking? 10Ks? Are we talking 20Ks?
Let's go ultra blue chip. Let's go 5Ks. Let's just really make it. Yeah, I'm saying super.
Because I would say, if you're buying a property right in, let's say, because if you're buying a property right in South Bank, or if you're buying one in
No, I'm not talking about. I haven't got to asset yet.
Okay.
Bear with me.
Yeah.
So location on its own won't do it. And you just provided a perfect example of why that won't happen, right? And this is the thing that I talk about in property all the time, is that there's all these lovely rules in property, and anyone who's not really that experienced in property will give you all these great rules, but there's always exceptions to the rule, and you can't ever apply these rules in blanket. And so if I say only buy in the 5K radius of the CBD, then I'd be falling in my own trap there, right? You know, that's not quite right, because if you bought one of those properties, you'd be done. So let's say 5, let's say 10. It's not about so much at this point what property is in that range. It's why would someone want to live there? And it's about scarcity. So the closer you are into an epicenter of something, the smaller the area, right? The further out you go, the bigger the area. So that's a scarcity thing with land. Land is worth more in these areas where they're close to amenity, close to knowledge centres where people with high-paying jobs work and don't want to commute long distances, close to restaurant strips, close to harbour, close to beach, close to river, close to parks, close to whatever it is that is drawing people to an area and makes that area aspirational, right? And it's not just about, I want to live in Mossman because all the houses there are worth $6 million or more. It's more about, I want to live within the proximity to these things that I do on the weekend, as well as being close to work and my friends and blah, 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 right? And so that same principle can be applied to Geelong, right? You go to Geelong, and around Newtown, I think it is, a little suburb there. It's got lots of really pretty little houses and older style houses and interesting sort of architecture, and it's walking distance to a cafe strip, and there's the what they call the Bayside there and that sort of stuff. Like that. So you can apply the idea of being in close proximity to lifestyle regardless of where you're looking buying. So it's like if you look at a coastal town, right? And be careful, because once again, if the only employer is tourism, that's not sustainable, right? If you're looking at moving, say you're going to look at buying in Byron Bay, like, I know I've picked another expensive place, but bear with me. Same principle. You can go there and you can live in Suffolk Park, which is just south of, it's a suburb just south of Byron Bay itself. You almost walk there. And there's a road carving Suffolk Park in half. You know, one half is on the beach side and the other half is on the other side. And guess which is the most expensive part?
Let me guess,
Probably
the other side?
The one where you don't have to cross a main road to get to the beach. You know, in the upper North Shore of Sydney, the same principle applies, right? People buy up there because one big reason is private schools, right? And so I'm not talking from an investor point of view. Don't go buying one of those houses because people want to live there for their private school kid. But anyway, so but the principle there is that there's East Side Walk Station. Like people want to be able to walk to the train stations to get their, you know, to get their train into their big jobs to pay for their big houses, right? Other side of the highway, so east side of highway, walk station, other side's got some different acronym and is not as desirable. Prices in that side aren't as high, and buyers will only go there. This is the next bit that's important. Is so why does this matter? Why does it matter that you know where's the most desirable pocket? And it's all price brackets, all places have this sort of principle in them, right? Why do people want to go to the best streets or the best part or whatever? And then why do they go to the other side in a hot market? Because they can't afford the best side, right? When markets falls, when prices start ebbing and when you know markets tank as they do, as they go up and down, right? Every buyer that said, oh, okay, I'll put up with it. I'll go on the other side of the highway if I have to, but I will because I have to. I've got no choice. Every buyer that was putting up with it, where the ripple effect goes in reverse, they go, bugger that. I'm not living on that side. Prices are coming down. I can afford to be on the right side now. There's loads of principles underlying all of that little sort of narrative, because this the thing is that fundamentally what drives prices and what makes a good investment is buying a property and that will sell well regardless of market conditions.
Yeah. Can I ask a question there around what are your, because I suppose I love the narrative. The narrative is probably more important than the tools and the metrics, because everybody focuses on the tools and metrics. But I'm going to go there as well, because that's what, I mean, unfortunately, it's what the audience wants. Pay attention to the narrative, people. But if you're not going to pay attention to the narrative, what are 3 or 5 things that you would, 3 of the most important things that people should look at, aside from the narrative, because the narrative is quite important, the why behind it. But what are those things?
Kent Lardner actually put me onto this some time ago, and it's called a CIFA score. It's ABS comes out with this data, and you can access it free. SEIFA.
Which score? A CIFA.
The socio-economic indicator. I don't know what the F stands for. So it's ABS.
For all.
Free for all. Yeah, look it up anyway. In ABS stats, SEIFA, and of course, I'm sure Kent's listening. And if you are Kent, just stick it in the comments, hey.
Actually, that's a great idea.
CIFA index, apparently. I'm looking it up. Yeah, here we go.
Yeah, it's he's got it in his platform. But what is it? How does it work?
So basically, every single suburb, it goes down to suburb level, I think. Yeah, and SA3. So Ken talks about SA3, right? It goes down to suburb level, and you can actually look at the socio-economic score. So obviously, if it's a 10, you go, right, well, this is it's got good growth, it's economically well, it's got good employment, probably low unemployment, the good incomes. All of those things point to having the sustainability of people that can fundamentally afford to buy property, right? And that's sort of, I mean, I know it's elitist. Hey, I know that. Let's not get into the argument about affordability and also about the rental stock in this country and we're shocking housing policy. But let's not even go there, right? Let's just understand that if you're going to be buying an investment property, you could do it altruistically, and you can go buy in all the cheapest areas. And you can put really low rent, and you can make it really affordable for people who desperately need property. You could do that. Most investors can't afford to do that because most investors are trying to actually buy a property so that they can buy themselves a retirement, right? Or get themselves out of a paid employment, whatever their goal is. But so you've got to make sure that you buy in an area where owner-occupiers want to buy and can afford to buy. Because if you don't have that dynamic in that area, if you've only got people that lots and lots of renters and they can't afford to pay good, high rents, then you are buying in an area that you're basically buying a property in an area where you don't have the ingredients for sustainable long-term capital growth. You might get some growth. Every now and then you'll get a flurry of investors buying in there, and that might push prices up. But fundamentally, it doesn't have the underlying drivers that a really solid area to invest in will have. So I'd start there.
Interesting. I love this. I love this idea. Like, and I know it's not revolutionary, but like the way I'm thinking about it is, if you were dropped in a random suburb and you had to choose a location, what would your process be? Right, you're just dropped in this random suburb. Hey, your job now, Veronica, is to find the hottest hottest area, the hottest street. How would you do that? How would you know?
Well,
what would you do?
I don't know. I don't know if Veronica works in the hottest way, but yeah.
Weirdly enough, I actually had to do this with the show when we were filming Location. So, I was, and this is the thing, this was actually a massive challenge for me because until I did that show, I'd had no exposure to any market in this country outside of Sydney, inner west of Sydney at that point, not even all of Sydney,
A beautiful part of the world, I must say.
A very beautiful part of the world. It's a great part of the world, expensive. But, it's a bit sheltered. So, the first series was relocation. Each couple bought 2 properties. And so we would be looking at, investments in Melbourne and beachfront properties up in Cairns, right? So how do you work that out? I mean, so getting in a car and then getting out of the car and walking around the streets, driving around and starting just using your eyes and your nose too sometimes.
Yeah, I think there's the shopping trolley effect. If you see the more shopping trolleys that get littered around the street, to turn around.
Have a walk through the shopping centre. That's very fun in certain places.
I'm not convinced though, Joe, because Ashfield, where I used to live, had a lot of shopping trolleys floating around the street. I think Ashfield has gone all right.
There are parts of Ashfield that go better than others, though.
Yeah.
But there are definite signs. Once you look at enough property, once you sort of drive around enough, once you walk around enough and get a sense for how proud are people about their homes, and how much Amplimesh is on windows. The Amplimesh.
How much what?
Amplimesh.
What's Amplimesh?
That horrible, it's like a security screen, but it's got this funny shape, all like that.
Kind of great thing, is it?
Yeah.
Safety first.
Around. That's a bad sign. How much rubbish is around? Like, how much graffiti. And I live in Newtown in Sydney. There's heaps of graffiti around here. It's art form here.
It's art. It's not graffiti, Veronica. It's art. It's a masterpiece.
There's a difference. There's graffiti and then there's art. Street art. But, you can absolutely get a real sense of a place literally by just walking around and being in there.
So actually, that's that. I love that. I love this because I'm kind of thinking, okay, so I've got $400,000, right? That's my buying budget. Now, you wouldn't say, hey, maybe. What would you say? You've got the option here to buy a very affordable, low, like a property in a nice area. Or you can move to a more regional location and purchase a nice property in the best location for that area. What what would you? I don't know. This might. But what are your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts on that?
This is not financial advice, folks. So don't go out and do this if your budget is $400K.
Do not do this if you have $400,000 to spend. It's a really good question. I noticed that a lot of the people in the Facebook group are asking questions along those lines, right? I've got this much money. Where should I buy? And in the surveys that we've done for Home Buyer Academy, that is the number one question that people want to know. Where should I buy? Whether they're buying to live in or whether they're buying as an investment, they're all asking the same question. And it's a dangerous question because everyone's got an opinion and everyone thinks their opinion is right. And very few people back up their opinion with any data and any evidence whatsoever. So that's why I commented on one of one of the posts by, all the answers I'm reading here, this shows why this is the most dangerous question that anybody who's looking at buying a property can ask, right? And so if you've got $400,000, any budget for that matter, and say you've got so many choices, it's overwhelming. And then the temptation is to go straight to data. And I think you should go to data to start with to narrow things down. So CIFA scores is a great thing, like basically if you go, right, okay, I only want to look at suburbs that have got a CIFA score of 8 or more for argument's sake, right? There you go, immediately narrow down to however many are there, right? Then you might do some research to say, well, now I need to know what their median house price is or apartment price, whatever you decide you're going to buy. And so you go, right, well, let's see what correlation I can get. How many of those places with really high scores have a median that's affordable? Now, the median is a dangerous thing, right? Because, of course, and I'm sure you've had Kent on here talking about medians, right? So the median is the midpoint, which means 50% of properties sell for more than the median and 50% for less than the median. Now, in different suburbs, say Suffolk Park, talking about before, the median price of a house close to the coast is going to be a lot more than a median price for a house on the other side of the highway.
Yeah. Which of course, it then comes down to, well, how many properties are transacting? Is there more? If there's more than 50% on that side of thing, then you're going to have the median skewed or the other way around.
And then it makes a top 10 list in one of those silly magazines that says that's the place to buy.
It's hit the list. It's hit number 10.
Yeah, exactly. So you've got to understand how this data comes about and what it means and then what it's constructed with so that you can actually use it meaningfully. And so then I'd say, okay, well, if you did your big search and said, right, of all these suburbs in the country that have got a CIFA score of 8 or more, and you go, okay, and that means a socioeconomic advantage and disadvantage score. That's probably the one I'd pick, right? So then you go, okay, then I've got this handful that correlate with that overlap, the Venn diagram, the little bit in the middle that these ones seem to be affordable. Then go on to Kent Suburb Trends website and look at his price segmentation. I don't know what he calls it, but there's a price segmentation.
That's it, yeah, that's what it's called.
And stratification of median, right? So this when you go, okay, well, you can look up any suburb and you can look at houses and you look at apartments and you can actually look at in each price bracket how many properties sell. And if they've got a lovely bell curve, it's so beautiful and it all fits beautifully in the bell curve, but most don't. They're a bit lumpy. So then you've got to think, well, what types of property are they? Where are they located?
Yeah.
What there's different clumps where there's a lot that sell for, 300,000, a lot that sell for 700,000. I go, well, what's in the middle? What's wrong? And then, but what are they? Where are they? What's the difference? Why do we have these little clusters, right?
And what's the typical breakup of those? Like, what is it? Does this place only have 2 beds? Does this only have 3 beds? Does it only have 4 beds? Like, all the owner occupiers and the majority of the sales volume is happening in this 3-bedroom place. Should you be buying a studio or a 1-bed? Maybe not, because that's not what the owner-occupier deal is.
Which parts of the suburb are they in? Because, and I think, I don't know, probably I don't know, interested in your thoughts on this, being a former real estate agent yourself, Veronica, but I found it very useful to actually just jump on the phone to a real estate agent and say, okay, I'm looking at buying this area. What are the areas where a lot of people buy, and why do they buy that?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that question? Is that a good question to ask, or
It's a great question to ask. You won't always find helpful real estate agents, but there's, there's
always. I must have just got lucky because all the ones that I've asked, they've actually said they've spilled the beans.
They said it's the best area ever. Every time.
But they've actually told me, well, I wouldn't touch that area. I wouldn't touch that street with 10-foot pole. And here's why I wouldn't. And I've actually looked at the price. And I'm like, what they're telling me correlates with the narrative, and they're telling me these are the best streets and here's why they're the best streets. And I'm like, okay, great. And then go back. So that cross-referencing, as you said.
It's a really good question to ask. And as I said, you ask enough of them and you'll find some people that will talk to you. And just be careful they've got no listings in those streets, right? Because if they've got a listing in that street, all of a sudden it's the best street.
Yeah.
Or
if you go to a barber,
just
if you go to a barber for a haircut, of course he's going to say, you need a haircut. Oh, I do need a haircut.
Hey, shifting gears a little bit, speaking of jobs and roles and things, you were talking about, and we had a chat off air, a pre-chat for those that don't know. But you were talking about the different tools that everybody has. And like what you were just saying, a barber's always going to say you need a haircut. But we were talking about, if you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail, and building a bit of an A-team for your investing journey. What is that? Can we talk a little bit about, what does that actually mean? Like, what am I talking about here?
So when we put together in Home Buyer Academy, we put together your first home buyer guide course, right? We really got into the order of it. It's so important to get the order right. And we came up with this PACE system. We call it PACE. It's preparation, action, commitment, and execution, right? And so there's 10 steps that fit within these 4 phases. And the first one, preparation, the very first step is to get your support crew assembled, even before you got your deposit fully saved up. Really understand who your trusted advisors are, who you're going to get the information from. And so the thing is, what a lot of people do, they pick one advisor or one source of information. And buyers agents fall in this trap all the time, or should I say people who look to talk to buyers agents fall in this trap all the time. And that is where they go to a buyers agent and they say, where should I buy? Now, there's 2 types of buyers agents, right? There's the type of buyers agent like me who, in my buyers agency business, only buys in certain part of Sydney, right? So what is a buyer's agent like me going to say to you if you come to me and say, where should I buy? I'm going to go, you should buy in my part of Sydney. Yeah. Of course, although I don't, because I'm weird. But hey, I'm the most, not all, I will say not all. Some are really, really good at giving holistic advice, but it's not really in our best interests to give holistic advice because we've only got a hammer and you're a nail. So what you need, my analogy is you need a village to buy a property, right? But you really need a crew to buy a property. So you need a crew. So you need someone with a hammer, someone with a screwdriver, someone with a saw, someone with a drill. You need to have all the tools in your toolkit. And what that means is that if you're going to talk to a buyer's agent, and I didn't talk about the other type of buyer's agent. The other type of buyer's agent is a driven buyer's agent who basically comes up with all this data, distills all the things we're talking about before, all that data to come up with the perfect places to actually invest. But they don't understand on a granular level the market, and they don't understand what makes a good property in that market. The local buyer's agent does. So you need both. It's really hard to
but it's tough though. But there's no, well, I don't know, I haven't done the research, but there's no buyers agents out in Warrnambool, right? That's looking like a potentially good purchasing area at the moment. It's got some green shoots that are looking really, really interesting, but there's no buyers agents out in Warrnambool. So what do you do in that instance?
You have to do the work yourself. And so what that means is that you can rely on, maybe you get the data that actually, is distilled and there's a recommendation on the rest of it. Then you need to get there and actually do the legwork. Otherwise, you are just going to hope it works.
Yeah. Well, as Joe said, you're handing over the keys to your financial future. And what kind of checks and balances have you put in place? And I think it's regardless of it, whether it's your accountant, whether it's your financial planner, whether it's any professional, kind of do a little bit of digging and just kind of see if what they're. I know it's interesting because we chatted to somebody today and they said that the problem that a lot of people is that they go to these forums and they ask questions and before they go to the professional and ask the question of that person why they're recommending. So I mean, I don't know. It's kind of it's an interesting one, but I think
So back to the toolbox, right? So, and the thing is that I believe you shouldn't just get advice from a buyer's agent. You need to get advice from an accountant. You need to get advice from a mortgage broker. You need to get advice from a financial planner as well. You need to get advice from, a number of different sources depending on what your requirements are, what your goals are, what you want to achieve, right? And so everyone wants to hold, a lot of buyers agents will be like, well, you can only buy property, you wouldn't buy any other type of investment. And it's like, well, that's stupid. You've got super, or you've got super, so that's enough in the share market. Or why don't you get a self-managed super fund and we'll buy you a property?
Be careful of those ones, especially if you're not paying them.
Oh man, yes. Don't do that. And in fact, I would absolutely go to a financial planner and get some good advice around your super before you go setting up a self-managed super fund to buy a property. That wasn't advice. That was being sarcastic. So the thing is that because a lot of these people don't talk to each other, it's like building a house with everyone having a different tool and there's no communication, right? That's a bloody nightmare. You need to have a crew that's actually working together to a plan, and know when to use the screwdriver and know when to use a hammer and so on. And the problem is, however, it's really difficult to source that information. And particularly for first-time investors or first-time home buyers, finding a financial planner who's prepared to actually take you on because of all of their obligations in terms of their licensing and the cost associated with that, like fundamentally, it's not worth anyone's time to actually help people. And this is
it's really difficult as well, because when I approached, when I was, 19, I approached a financial planner and he was like, he walked me through this amazing pitch and he was like, it's going to cost you 10K. And I'm like, that's a lot of money. I don't have that money. But also everything changed. I moved overseas. I did all the crazy stuff. And like, I don't know, getting a financial planner so early on would be, there's so many variables. It would be tough for them to give you a good plan because you haven't got that foundation.
But they're not even, we're not taught financial literacy at school. We're not even growing up with these basic fundamentals of understanding this stuff. So
I don't understand why. I don't know. Why is that? Why do we not get taught this?
Oh my God, I don't know.
Because we have to have employees, Joe. We can't all be entrepreneurs and financially free, because otherwise who's going to be able to help them?
Who's going to be the lackey?
Yeah.
Who's going to be the lackey? We need lackeys.
If you're watching this stream now, I want to see you put a comment down and say, I'm not going to be the lackey, because
no lackey for me. No lackey for me.
I haven't been watching the I used to watch them. I went, look at them all. There's so many of them.
Yeah.
There's been some questions here.
We'll get to them. Otherwise,
okay.
Yeah.
So where we're up to. So the thing is, and this is a real challenge, that without your own financial literacy, without by asking questions in Facebook groups like this where other people go, you should go and buy in Logan, then you are likely to not know the right questions to ask, to challenge the information that's been given to you, to know whether it's actually good advice or not. And that is our own individual responsibility, to arm ourselves and educate ourselves so that we don't fall in the traps of being sold to by people in an industry, as in the property industry and all the allied industries that feed off it, because it's not regulated. Sure, I need a license to help you buy. I need a license to help you sell, but I don't need a license to give you property advice. And it's disgusting and it's shocking, but it's a fact. And so you get mortgage brokers being given, double-digit tens of thousands of dollars to help their clients buy brand new and off the plan. You get financial planners also being offered similar incentives to help their clients buy off the plan and buy brand new house and land packages, and accountants, because you've got a tax problem. Even
certain buyers agents, unfortunately. So if somebody's been giving you a stock list to buy a property and you're not paying them, just be very, very careful. And probably just
are paying them, it's even worse.
So actually that's a great one, because you've been in the industry for 9 I don't know, we did You've been doing it for a while, and you were talking about you've obviously seen things happen throughout the years with the buyer's agent space. How do you choose a good one? What are the good questions for someone just starting out? Because Jeff and I both had a poor experience with our first property. We went with the best buyer's agent, had the best marketing, who had the greatest things, and we both got a dud property.
We use different ones, by the way, but yeah.
No, we use different ones. There's at least two bad buyer's agents. Yeah. At least. And
before we get Veronica's answer, I don't necessarily think that the property I got was terrible. I got exactly what I asked for. So I think to Veronica's point, and Joe, you have a great post on this, but I want to hear your perspective, and keeping in mind you're a buyer's agent, of course.
Yeah. Well, I'm a rare one because I will tell my clients not to buy property, or sometimes people come to me and I wouldn't be buying a property if I were you. Some people are so hell bent that they actually go and find someone else who just go, oh yeah, you want one of them? Sure, I'll give you one. I'll find one. Yeah. Here's the thing. Okay, a good buyer's agent is going to ask you a hell of a lot of questions, right? The minute they get their hammer out and treat you like a nail, you've got a bad buyer's agent.
Yeah.
So they need to ask you questions, and you need to feel like they're not selling to you. Because, look, they're trying to sell their services, of course, but basically they're trying to sell you a system, or they're trying to sell you, this idea, that you like, basically they're trying to sell you, dreams, basically pump up your tires and sort of tell you how, you can be financially free in ridiculous amount of time. If they're going to put together a property plan for you as you're buying a property every 2 years, if all this spruikerish sort of stuff that is cloaked up in, well, I'm a licensed real estate agent, so therefore I can say it, is scary stuff. So basically, if it seems too formulaic, if they're not asking you enough questions, if they're calling it a strategy, then I'd be very, very careful. And I'd be also saying to them, what is your process for selecting a property and then the due diligence process that you take? I want to know that you can tell me examples of when you've talked a client out of a property.
Ooh.
Now, if
that's
they
a good
can't
one.
do that, then don't go near them, run. And I will guarantee a lot can't. There'll be some really good ones that can, and they're like, oh, right, I'm glad you asked me that question, blah, Others will like, oh, blah, blah, whatever,
Well, actually, I'm kind of interested now because what I'm starting to see in the buyer's agent industry is independent buyer's agents, right? A little boutique firm of 1, 2, 5 people, right? 3 people that are working hard with their clients. And then there is the buyer's agents that go for scale. And these are still good buyer's agents, right? I see people that have grown and just keep scaling out their business. But what are your thoughts on buyer's agent at scale with those, 20, 30 employees and trying to, like, how do you, I don't know. I don't know if there's a question in there, but when you look
at an
as
answer, even if you don't have a question, how's that?
Yeah.
I've been through this with my business at Good Deeds, right? I can't scale Good Deeds because I have made a commitment to my clients to only buy really good property. And I've also made a commitment to only buy, you will buy without regrets. So I can't make that commitment. I can't make the commitment to only buy a good quality property, good quality assets, not just a good quality property, but good assets, right? And if they want to buy a bad asset, they do it with their eyes wide open, and I've hauled them over the coals trying to convince them otherwise, and sometimes they still do it, right? So that's fine. That's their decision with their eyes wide open. But I can't make that commitment and keep a tight geographical area if I want to scale. So if I stay in a tight geographical area and I scale and I put on loads of buyer's agents, well, I'm going to start buying crap.
Can we get an example of what? Can we get an example of what crap is within kind of your area of expertise? Because
I'll be buying stuff on main roads. I'll be buying stuff in big unit complexes. I'll be buying all the stuff that basically would struggle to sell in a cold market.
Okay. Yeah.
Because that stuff's easy to buy at the moment, right? And I see more, not in lockdown, but when it's not lockdown, I tell you what, I see more buyers agents bidding on properties that are garbage than I see bidding on properties that are good. And the reason being
the FOMO effects, right? They sort of see that everything's going up, and they're like, well, okay, even this one that there's still three people bidding on this. instead of the 10 people,
Mm.
that would be a concern for me, because if there's not that much interest, and if there's not interest in a really hot market, then what's it going to be like in a sideways or kind of a slightly down market?
Exactly. And if a lot of the interest is other buyers agents who basically are going for it because it's not as competitive as the other properties that are better, what does that say? So,
Yeah.
you know, and so I tell you, there's another thing too, you know, like ask a buyer's agent what's your success rate, and see what they say. Because if they start blabbing on about, oh, I always
100% auction rates.
yeah, 100% auction, you know, or oh, I always get 20% off the asking price, and it's all this palaver. It's like that's assuming that every asking price is some basis in reality, but that's just some vendor's dream price. I mean, really, that's just stupid and naive, and I just hate stupidity. So back to your question about scale, right? So
Yeah.
you can't scale unless you really do expand and do a good job, right? By buying quality assets, unless you really do spread yourself out geographically. And I do think that having 20 buyers agents in one office is, I don't believe it's not scaling in a way I'd want to scale, put it that way. And so it's one of the reasons that I partnered up with Megan Wells, who's a Brisbane-based buyers agent, to do Home Buyers Academy, is because that's the only way I can scale and help more people. You know, if I actually scale a buyers agency, this is my own personal choice, and this is what I've looked at and decided not to do, then I'm not helping people anymore. I'm just helping myself.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's an interesting model where it's all going to end up, the whole buyer's agent space, because it's quite new and exciting for people right now, and you want to get into this hot market. And people are just falling into anything.
You don't need a buyer's agent to help you do that. You can do that all by yourself. You can buy crap by yourself. You can overpay by yourself. You don't need to pay somebody else to help you overpay to buy crap.
Speaking of buyers agents, I think we're well over the hour mark now. So I think we need to actually pay the bills, Joe. We need to scale ourselves as well. So
there you go. Well, yeah, I was going to transition that a little bit smoother than say pay the bills. What I was interested in, Veronica, was hearing you've written even the book on auctioneer. Have you got it there? Oh, please. Auction ready. So I am. We're going to go to our next sponsor, but I'm really interested in how people can actually start winning bids, how to show up to an auction, how to prepare for an auction, how to get ready for an auction, and how to actually seal the deal at the auction. So I'd love to dive into that if that's cool.
You can. After the sponsor.
after these great messages. Okay, let's do the thing. Let's talk about commercial property investing. It's one of those areas that confuses many people. Probably because of the risks involved, but it's also one of the few asset classes that can give you a very positive cash flow from day one. With commercial property, you get some massive net yields of 6 to 10%. Now, that's not gross, that's net, which means it's cash in your pocket. This is what makes them so amazing. Your property can actually pay itself off within 10 years, grow in value, and without having you to chip in any cash at all. Now, with big rewards comes some big risk, which is why you should de-risk your investment as much as possible. The way you do this is with expert due diligence. This is why we highly recommend hiring professionals to help you along in your investing journey. Steve Polisi of Polisi Property is one such expert. He is one of Australia's top commercial property buyers agent. With his own multi-million-dollar property portfolio of a mix of commercial and residential, Steve has over 1,200 property transactions under his belt. He is the guy you want in your corner, crunching the numbers, finding the best properties in the best location, along with the ways to avoid the dud properties. Steve has even been the one to write the book on commercial property investing in Australia, and it's a bestseller. He's been generous enough to give us a massive discount to our audience of 50% with the code AUS Prop. Click the link below, get a copy today, and start your commercial property investing journey.
Jeff's on mute again.
He is. So Veronica, I'm sorry, I was super pumped then, but it didn't come out. Okay, auctions. What the heck? How do we do them? Because they're scary. All of a sudden, there's 50 people surrounding this super enthusiastic person, and you've got to stick your hand up. Like, give us the run through. How do we do this thing?
Imagine Tom Penos. You're trying to buy at auction.
Oh,
Tom Penos,
God.
He's ripping the crowd. He's like, there's the people. Yeah, I'm just imagining a Tom Penos.
He's hilarious, actually. I've had some great heckling auctions with Tom. I only wish they'd been videoed. They would have been hilarious. Okay, one of the things that people are scared of auction, right? But what they're scared of auction because they have never had a really horrible blind negotiation process with an agent when they're trying to buy it prior to auction, where they're lacking in all transparency. They've got no idea what they're doing, whether the agent's telling the truth or not. So one of the real benefits.
It's a great way to look at it. Like, just reframe the whole thing. Yeah.
So one of the benefits of auction is that it's transparent. But I tell you what, look, I'll offer. I think I've given you a discount code for 30% off the book, and I'll post it to you for free as well. If you want, it's AUSIP. So that's the discount code. Oh, well, you've got it anyway. So. And that sets it all out, right? But what I don't have in there is a chapter for online auctions. They're a whole other beast. But the principles are basically the same. Your elephant, which is the metaphor for our subconscious minds and all of our personal biases and just going rampant. FOMO, social proof. There's all sorts of stuff going crazy in our brains when we go to auction, right? And so what people fail to do, and I see this time and time again, they don't prepare properly. And one of the big things they need to do to prepare is really understand what that property is worth in the current market, right? Then they've got to understand how much is it worth to them. How much are they prepared to push themselves for that property, apart from what can they afford and all the rest of it. It's for them, how long do they have to wait for another one? For them, how often does something like that come up that really, really suits them? And if it's often, don't push yourself that hard. And if it's not that often, then you will push yourself harder. But you do need to price it and learn how to price it. So, and we do have a free course on Home Buyer Academy, which is how to price a property, because there's a process there. We use it in buyer's agent business. It's a sort of a trimmed down version for DIYers, but you have to go through a very rigorous and thorough process to actually work out what a property is worth. If you haven't gone through that process and you turn up at auction, all you're thinking about is other buyers. You're not thinking about what is this property worth? What is it worth to me? And the other thing, probably I haven't written about this in the book really, but the thing that I do when I'm at auction is that I'm trying to stop somebody else from bidding. I'm not trying to buy it. I can't buy it unless they stop bidding.
Okay. So another reframe. I like it.
Everything I do is about stopping that other person bidding. So you won't see me bid in 1,000s for $100,000, which I see buyers doing all the time. They're bidding in 1,000s because each one they go, I don't want to be too much. I don't want to be the idiot that pays 10 more. I only want to pay $1,000 more than the other person. All this stuff going through their head. They're already over their limit, which is why they're only bidding in 1,000s anyway. It's like it's some rhythm that goes on, and they're like zombies, and everyone's freaking out, and then they get competitive because I want to win and I don't want that bastard to win, or whatever's going on in their brain. If they haven't actually gone in and worked out what it's worth to them, and what they'll walk away at, right? And then bid to make other people stop bidding.
How do you make them stop? How do you make people stop?
You make it
Scare
look like
them.
you're never going to stop. So, but listen, it's different every time. I could go in with there's not many other interested parties and go in with a massive knockout bid. I stopped them all bidding, all right, but oh dear.
There was only one other person bidding, and they were going to pay $200,000 less than what you bid. So
exactly, you've got to be careful. You've got to learn to read the room. You've got to learn to actually observe and not just be caught up in your own head and not be thinking about what other buyers are doing all the time. You actually got to learn how to watch people and watch what they do and go to as many auctions as possible and watch the different auctioneers and what they do to get you to bid. And I watch the auctioneers use other bidders. They're never going to buy it in a million years. Like the highest bidders there clearly got more money. And the good auctioneers will still get more money out of that other underbidder. So that the highest bidder
I think you'd be a very good poker player, Veronica, if you're already not, because I imagine you play the room quite well, or you.
haven't played poker, and I think I want to learn it. Yeah.
So, what other? There's got to be more. I feel like you've got so many value bombs. I just want to kind of milk it. But obviously, I'm very cautious of your time. You've spent amazingly long with us. So, if anyone has any comments, pop them in the comment box. Believe it or not, for Veronica, and we'll try to get to as many of those as possible. But what other kind of thing?
Oh, sorry. I was gonna ask a question, but you were on a rant. Sorry, on a rant. You're on a. Sorry, Joe. I've stopped the momentum. I didn't read the room. I'm sorry.
But do go on, Jeff. I feel like you had something go. It's going to be really, really good.
Because I want to talk about one of the elements in the room that we did speak about in the pre-chat. One of those is when people shouldn't buy property. What are some of the reasons why people shouldn't buy?
Shouldn't buy.
Oh God. Quite a lot of people that comment on your Facebook page, I think, shouldn't be buying property just quietly, but is because they're clearly not ready, and they're asking people on your Facebook group what they should be doing. No, don't do that. But, it's so. The issue is, right, if you're thinking, I just want to get into the market, I've got to get into the market, I'm going to get left behind, there's this frenzy going on, and that is your primary driver, then you're not ready. Because you aren't thinking clearly about what it is that you need to be looking for and buy in order to achieve whatever it is you want to achieve. So if your goal is to buy a property, that's a terrible goal. Your goal needs to be way longer out there than that. Your goal needs to be, why do I want to buy a property? What is it going to do for me, right?
And how much is it going to cost me?
How much is it going to cost me too? Absolutely. But am I going to live in it? If I'm going to live in it, how long am I going to live in it for? Is it my studio apartment that I first bought? Dumb. I was just thinking, buy a property. Don't spend too much money. Buy a property. And so you've got all the wrong stuff going through your head. So therefore, if you're thinking, okay, I need to buy a property, or I want to buy a property because down the track, because we're thinking long-term, remember people, down the track, I want that to grow in value. And then ultimately, I don't want to owe a lot of money on it because I want to have the rent, providing me an income. But right now, it's my stage of life, got a good income. I don't need the rent to pay my income now, but I do in the future. Then I need to be thinking I need to buy a property that's going to be in an area with sustainable capital growth, and I need to learn what is a good property within that area. And then if I can afford to buy a good property in an area that's going to give good sustainable capital growth, then great. But if I don't have enough money to buy a good property anywhere, then I shouldn't be buying property because I can't afford to lose a small amount of money I've got access to. It's all I've got, and if I can only borrow, $200,000 for argument's sake, I'm not sure, and I could get lampooned for this, but I'm not sure there's any good investments across the country for $200,000. I'm not sure. Could be, and I'm hoping to be proven wrong. It's a dangerous thing to say, but
big thing.
I really don't know about
especially
that.
after this recent boom as well.
Exactly.
If it hasn't grown in this last 12 months,
when is it ever going to grow? I mean,
I don't know. I don't like your chances.
Never. So, we interviewed a buyer's agent, actually, Matt Ward from Aspect Buyer's Agents out in Orange, right? And we interviewed him on Home Buyer Academy because we were sort of saying, well, if people want to, if people want to move to the regions, what do they need to be thinking about if they're moving out of a city? And he was talking about people that are investing. You can buy houses out there for $50,000 out the back of New South Wales. But, he raised a really good point. It's such a good thing. He says, you know what, an air conditioner costs the same whether it's in a $3 million house or whether it's in a $50,000 house. The air conditioner costs the same. And out there, you need an air conditioner. If it goes bust, right, basically that's going to wipe out your year's rent.
It's so true. And also as a percentage of the value of the property as well, it's a large portion. It's $3,000 installed. That's a lot of that's a lot.
Yep. You go to these investment seminars and they talk about, the percentage of the value of the property that you should spend on your kitchen, for instance. They're not talking about it being a significant portion for your aircon. But I mean, that's putting it into context though, isn't it? To say that, look, Yeah, sure. You can go there and buy a piece of shit everywhere if you want. There's heaps of pieces of shit out there you can buy, and you can probably get good rent if you looked at it as a percentage basis, a percentage yield. Does that make it a good investment? Probably not.
I just want to say we love. I love the regions. Like I'm just because of property price. There's no disparage to the regions. We love. I love regions, and I want to go and travel around Australia.
But they still have to. They still have to be backed by solid fundamentals. You can't just be. Yeah. You can't just be a one-horse town. It can't just be in the middle of nowhere. It has to have some lifestyle aspect. It has to have multiple industries.
I wasn't talking about for investment purposes, Joe. I was just saying I didn't want to kind of rubbish anybody who lives in those areas because.
Oh, that's different. If you're going to live out there forever and
yeah. Oh, it's beautiful. You're going to see stars. I don't know the last time I saw a star. I live in the city. I live in Cronulla.
It's on the screen in front of us.
It's a plane. It's actually the plane light.
It is.
So I'm not
rubbishing the region. The Milky Way.
I'm totally not rubbishing the regions. I'm just saying that there are. He was an example, giving an example.
To your point there, one thing I saw this the other day, and I think, and they said they were a builder, and I'm sure they'd be okay with me saying this was in a group, so they did comment anyway. And he said he wanted to buy. They said they wanted to buy a property every 1 or 2 years, and I don't think that. And I said, well, I kind of thought through the process of this person, and they're just seeing this. Probably seen this news.com article, whatever it is, and they've seen somebody buy 5 properties in 2 years, and they're like, oh, I want to do that. I want to aspire to that. But they haven't then, as you said, they haven't gone back and said, well, what do you actually want to achieve? Or why do you want to achieve that? Because maybe you don't need a property every 1 to 2 years. Because I sort of started the notion of, I wanted to have 10 properties in 10 years. And that was, and now I realise there's mentors of mine and of ours, Joe, that have sort of 3 or 4 properties, and they're earning a lot more income than people that probably own 20 or 30 properties. So
yeah, I would much prefer fewer properties and a larger amount of value than, like, at the same value. I'd rather have 5 sensational ones rather than 20 just sporadically spread out throughout, and then you crap. Yeah. Because it's very interesting. You do hear a lot of like, oh, I have 30 properties by X age, but you don't ever tell me the value of those properties, so I can work out the average is only 200,000. You only tell me you have 30.
Yeah, exactly. That's the wrong metric, and it's funny actually. I literally has been reached out by this young couple that have written a book about how to invest in property, and they were trying to get on the podcast, and I was like, oh, there's just nothing you're saying is anything different. Nothing is anything new. I'm sorry, I've heard it all before, blah blah. And then he clinched it by saying, and I bought 3, and I'm only 25. And I'm like, that's it. You're definitely not coming on the podcast because I'm sorry. As I said, property's a long game, and we don't know whether you're successful or not yet. When you're successful, I'll have you on the podcast. You can tell everybody what you did. But right now, it's still a guessing game. Nah.
You have to tell us who it is after. You probably know, but yeah.
Well, it's true. Well, and this is why I really wanted to have you on, because you've been through a number of cycles and been able to see what sticks around and what doesn't. And that's why I really like that the pain and gain report and going through the data. Sometimes it's a little bit boring. It's a little bit annoying to have to do these research. It's painful, but then you look at the people that aren't doing it, and it's not building a solid foundation, and you're not going to be able to get many places if you're not actually looking at the data and looking at what actually matters. And that's why we love having Kent on. He is speaking the truth when it comes to real data that's going to be valuable.
Yes,
I love it.
Now, actually, talk about speaking the truth. I'm wondering if I did send you a link for a survey I've put together, only because what I see, and I'd love you to share it if you can, and if anyone wants to dedicate a few minutes of their time to fill in this survey. And the reason I'm doing this is because I've got a big, hairy, audacious goal down the track, right? A BHAG. and it really is to really help people have a source of truth in property. Now, I still don't know how I'm going to do it, But I want to learn more from punters, right, who are struggling to know where to go to get information. I won't be selling you anything at the end of this, I promise you, right, because I'm just wanting to research. But I will give you a free ebook, my free ebook, which is how to buy a low-risk investment property. So it sort of gives all the fundamentals that I've been talking about today. So you can have that for nothing. But hey, I'm not trying to sell you anything. I actually do want to understand where the challenges you have in trying to find where to go to get information that you can rely on, who to trust. And, as I said, I want to create a source of truth down the track, but it's complicated because the problem is most people in the property industry aren't interested in being a source of truth. And I want to find those that are. So this is a real challenge, and your help would be if you just sort of give me some interest in, some info in terms of just your perceptions of what you do when you're looking for information and advice. That'll be really useful. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah. I'm just
I love it.
I'll do the I'll do the survey as well. I can't go. I'll do. Yeah.
I'll jump in on as well. Let's do it. Let's all do it. We've got some hands up here as well, so they're ready to jump on in. But you've kept hinting at this thing. It's called a home buyer something. What is the home buyers something? The home buyers academy. Absolutely.
Yes. Home buyer academy. We're focusing firstly on first home buyers, right? But that goes for rent investors as well as owner occupiers. And in fact, we've had quite a few people coming to the program that actually aren't first home buyers. They're snacking. We're a bit guilty. I'm buying my second. Is it all right? And I'm like, yeah. It's just that first home buyers know they don't know anything, right? Whereas upgraders tend to think, I did it once, so I'm good. I know what I'm doing, So we didn't target the upgraders because they know what they're doing. Whereas first home buyers, they know they need help, right? So what it is that we have an online course for first home buyers or anybody really. It's the PACE system. It's teaching you what to do in the right order so that you don't stuff it up, right? Because it's so easy to stuff up. And we have a little workshop. We have a free mini course, as I mentioned to you before, which is how to price a property. So that's free for anybody, right? That's the link you just put up there then. We have a couple of little paid tutorials. They're $39. So where to buy a workshop, which is not actually for investors. It's really for owner occupiers. We've got to do one for investors. We've got a stepping stone strategy workshop there, which is basically, it's a tutorial. We run these live workshops every now and then. As when I say every now and then, we've only managed to do 2. We're planning the 3rd. We're busy.
You've got a lot on, Veronica. You've got a lot on.
I want to do this full time. I really do. I love it. And so, we're teaching the fundamentals and the foundations on what to do so you don't get hoodwinked by all the misinformation that's out there. There's so much information that you go out there. The internet has been both foe and enemy, friend and foe, right? It's like it's great. You've got access to all this stuff, but how do you disseminate? How do you work out what's important? How do you actually not get, down a rabbit hole and get really off the beaten track? All my metaphors are getting really messy. So for Home Buyer Academy, and then we've got the proper course, which is your first home buyer guide, which is the 10 steps, and so that's $749 to do that. And then we're starting to build a membership around that so that we can mentor people through the home buying journey and actually help them at the moments that matter. And we've run some beta groups through that, and they've been able to talk to us at the point they've found the property. What do I do next? All that sort of stuff. And so that's what's got me really excited, because these first home buyers, I want to get them away from government grants and buying off the plan and brand new house and land packages and into buying quality property and into what they need to do in order to do it properly and in the right order. And it's really rewarding. So there you go. That's what I've been doing.
I love it. I really, I think it's an awesome place to start as well, because first home buyers are typically not, like, they're targeted by the sharks, but also the buyer's agents are not generally the most helpful for them, because they're like, oh, this person needs a whole heap of education. I just don't have time. I want to get someone that is a little bit more advanced, a little bit knows what they're talking about. They've read a couple of books, whereas you're taking them right from their, their little baby stage to then grow them, nurture them.
Grow into a nice little lemon tree. I like lemon trees. I've got a lemon tree in our backyard.
I like it. So that's amazing. Amazing that you're doing that. And you get a free course as well. So take advantage.
Should we jump into some questions, Joe? Or do you have do you have a question? Well, because there's been some good questions I think come through.
Let's jump into the questions. I'm keen to hear what
Sure.
So
let's go to start from the top.
Yeah, okay. We'll start from the top. So
maybe not right at the top. It's just buy.
Oh, Moroni. I love Moroni. Go hard and buy. Hot market. So if you have any questions, throw them in the. If you have any comments or cracking day, Jeff, sound like we watch. Oh, geez, you might be right. Whoever said that. So I'm just seeing. Here we go. So Jocelyn. So Jocelyn said, and I believe you've used. You've had. I wish you wish she was. She wishes you were her BA. So can Veronica mention her best purchase and her worst purchase?
Yeah.
So your first, was it first the worst?
No, it wasn't actually. My worst was actually a weekender. It was actually a disaster, but not because it was a bad property, but because I had a neighbour from hell. And it wasn't until, and this is a long thing, and I bought it with an ex, and I've got quite a few exes. It's just never say sorry. Now maybe I've learned how to say sorry. Maybe I can no longer get exes. But anyway, so I bought this with an ex years and years ago. When we broke up, I agreed to take that as part of the settlement, which is number one mistake. And in order to do so, I needed to put on Airbnb, and we'd never, ever rented it out in the 10 years that we'd owned it. And so I put it on Airbnb. Wow. I spoke to some of the neighbours and I tried to suss it out, but it was a disaster. The very first, this is a good example of using experts, right? I tried to find an expert who could help me in this area, but there actually weren't any. It's a bit like you're talking about finding a buyer's agent in Warrnambool. There were no one. So I had to learn this the hard way, and boy, did I. So the neighbour that I didn't realise was an asshole, I had really bad guests the very first weekend. I didn't realize I could just go in there and evict them, and I should have. And maybe if I did that, maybe I wouldn't have the whole nightmare after. Anyway, put it this way, the neighbor from hell just basically made my life hell from then on. I was in court, all sorts. It was a nightmare.
Wow.
And I should have just backed down at some point, but I got quite stubborn. You can't tell me what to do. And so it ended up costing me a lot of money. I ended up saying, you know what, finally had enough and realised my mental health was worth more than trying to keep this property. And I did decide to sell it. Wish I'd known about COVID, though. I would have put up with it just for a little bit longer, and I would have done so much better.
But how can you identify maybe like lesson learned, right? Learn from Veronica, so you go through the pain, so we don't have to. Unfortunately, sorry. But how do you? So we can gain. This is a bit of a challenging question, but how do you know? How can you kind of stop that? How do you not make that happen? How do you avoid the dodgy neighbors? It's a challenge. I don't know.
I've asked myself this many, many, many times, because every time I have something like this happen, and I don't have this happen very often, let me tell you, it was quite traumatic. But throughout the whole process, I'm thinking to myself, what is the lesson that I need to learn from this? How am I going to be able to actually help other people at some point? Because this is hell. It was horrible.
Yeah.
Right? And I think I still don't really know is probably the answer to that. I don't know how you identify a neighbour that's going to be an asshole when you put them under pressure, And I guess, and so that's the thing. I didn't have any sign that this guy was an asshole. In fact, weirdly enough, once, even before this happened, he was on his ladder on his roof and he fell off, and I sort of saved his life. Now, often I thought to myself, sliding door moment,
Oh no!
Remember that ladder day? Yeah.
Anyway,
God.
Often I've wondered about that, but no. So, but I do think it's the Airbnb that's the issue. It's the assuming that just because I have a property and because I want to use it some of the time, and therefore I should be able to do this, and just assuming that I can do it because to the letter of the law I could. And so this is the thing where even when you're living with, when you're living in strata, you've got neighbours and that you've got rules that you've got to follow and all the rest of it. When you're living in a street, with Torrens title property with the house next door and house next door, you still do have to get on with your neighbours. And I guess I used to just drive in and drive out. But, I guess that's my big lesson is that particularly your usage of your property, you got to sort of make sure you're not trying to push the envelope. And I tried to push the envelope. I wouldn't have thought it was pushing the envelope, but it turned out to be pushing the envelope. And I think that that's an important thing to know, that a lot of people do talk about getting Airbnb and getting the higher yields and that sort of stuff for property, for instance. It can be dangerous because it's not always as easy as it seems.
Yeah. And just remember, some people have more time on their hands than you do.
Oh, yeah. And this guy was a retired white guy.
So, there you go. I bet he had a boat as well.
We're the retired white guy.
How about the best purchase as well? Let's kind of talk about the good stuff.
It's probably it could be my house I live in, because I've renovated a number of houses. It could be, look, there's one investment property that I actually did a full renovation, and because I didn't get good accounting advice early on, I had too much equity in it when I did go to renovate my own home. So, the whole tax effective debt, there's like...
Oh, yeah, about the deductible, the purpose.
Yes, the accountant would probably have the set square, perhaps.
So what is that? So hang on, this is obviously not financial advice and to seek to your professional, but what are we talking about here? Yeah.
So basically, quite a lot of people do this. First home buyers can fall in this trap very easily, and where you buy a property to live in it, right? And then you earn more money, or you couple up with somebody, and you can upgrade, and you can afford to keep the first property that you bought. And so, and you've been really diligent, and you've been paying down your debt, and you haven't had an offset account, and you've paid it off maybe, or you've paid off a big chunk of it. Then you go to upgrade, and you go, oh, I can use the equity in that towards buying another property, but I have to borrow all of the money to buy my next home. And if you have to do that, and you've got, so you've got a situation where you've got no deductible debt. So basically, if investors like to borrow as much as possible for their investment properties so that they can deduct the debt. So basically the cost of that debt is deducted from their taxable income, right? Once again, not accounting advice, but you can do that. And so, but you can't deduct the interest cost on your own home.
Takes some place residence,
Yeah, can't do it. So I did choose to sell. I didn't have to. I chose to sell that property to release that equity and use it after paying tax to renovate my home. And so you could say it was a bad thing because I had too much equity in it, as opposed to the other way around. And I made mistakes early on paying down debt and stuff. Dumb. Didn't know. So you could say it was a bad thing. But the reality is I had all that equity and I was able to use it. And I did this full massive renovation, and I ended up paying cash for that. I didn't have to borrow any money to renovate my house, and I did a big renovation. And that's because of good property decisions, some bad ones that meant I had less money than I could have had perhaps, but good property decisions along the way that I got the benefit of as I was a lot older. 16 years I owned that property.
Wow.
So
good. And it's principal place of residence, so it's a lot less.
It wasn't, unfortunately, it wasn't. But it
wasn't.
No, it never was. But what I
live in it for 6 months. Take it.
I know where I made the mistake was that I did sell a principal place of residence and stupidly put money from that sale off the debt. Dumb. Anyway, that's another story from a long time ago.
Yeah. It is very interesting, this whole debt thing. I just got equity released as cash, and then just an offhanded comment from a broker. He's like, "Oh yeah, just don't put it in your offset of your PPOR." So yeah, anyway, okay, bye. And I'm like, "Hang on, wait, what? I've got to be careful with this stuff." So do.
It's all about
good advice, huh?
It's all about purpose, man. Purpose of what you're doing.
Absolutely. Yeah. So now I've got a great offset account, which is offsetting my mortgage, and then I've got all this money just sat there, not offsetting. So it's like you put all this effort in to get a mortgage, to get an offset account, and you can't even use it.
And this is the thing. This is why getting the right advice early on is so important. You know, I've
Why
made
it's,
mistakes.
what is the P? The P of pace.
Yeah.
Preparation.
We're on an hour 40, so we've got. I mean, somebody asked about.
Are we halfway tonight? That's a good question.
That was a joke from last week. That's Luke Moroney who challenged us to go 4 hours with Pete Wargent. I reckon Pete could have gone 4 hours, but I think I would have had to. Joe would have been falling asleep. Because but so somebody asked, what is your geographical coverage as a buyer's agent? I think you're mostly Sydney or inner West Sydney, which.
Yeah, so we do the eastern suburbs, the lower North Shore, and the east and the inner west. That's what we say. And that's basically the 10K radius you were mentioning earlier, trying to pin me down on distance from the CBD. It's the 10K radius.
Yep. Somebody said, do buyers agents also assist in sourcing commercial properties? Yes, Steve Felizi is a sponsor.
It does.
So we had. I'm this person probably wasn't watching the show then, I suppose.
Oh, no, they didn't watch. They didn't get to the ad.
Yeah,
Didn't get to the ad.
didn't watch the ad. So we'll get to some more legit questions. Here we go. So this is one from Katrina. I think this is an interesting one. So when she looks at realestate.com, she sees auctions 90%. And auction clearance rate's a bit of a furphy for mine because that's of the sales that are actually reported. So be careful about auction clearance rates, people. What percentage of your purchase would you say happened prior to market or off market?
It's a great question.
Yeah, it's a good question. Do you know, if you want to sort of get a little insight into some of that, beneath the data, it's only Sydney based, but Cooley auctions have what they call the Cooley index, and so it's only a subset of Sydney auctions, but it's quite a significant amount, and so they do hundreds of auctions in a month, and they do break down their data. So they've got their clearance rate, but they also look at, you know, percentage open with a vendor bid, percentage open, percentage sold above reserve, you know, sold prior, et cetera, et cetera. So we do track that and we keep an eye on that. Certainly you'll see buyers want to buy prior, right, in a hot market. Sellers want to sell prior in a cold market. So you'll get agents manufacturing pre-auction offers. And it's hard to pull those two things apart because it is difficult to sort of say, oh, look, just because, you know, X amount sell prior to auction, that means it's a hot market or a cold market, you know, because the factors and the reasons are different. But, you know, it could be 20, 30% that are sold prior to auction. Withdrawals are counted as passed in. So if they've been registered, so basically anything sold up to and including the auction day are counted if they're recorded, of course. And as long as they use the same methodology all the time, then it's, you know, it's as robust as it can be, right? And I've always used domain, and because I started using domain, so I can't change. You know, I can't go and then suddenly use real estate because their numbers are different on a weekly basis because of how they actually collect the data. So it's a relativity that's from you know, in one source, in each source.
You know, I am starting to lean more towards real estate, domain rather than away from real estate. I feel like they have.
Yeah,
I'm starting to get converted. Have we got any more questions, Jeff?
We do. There's Josh has asked a couple, so I think you're still on, Josh. So there's one that I don't quite understand. So he's asked, when purchasing investment, do you request to hide the price from real estate, CoreLogic, et cetera, at the start? So I don't know if you're purchasing why you'd hide the price, but if you could clarify that question. But
well, actually, that maybe that's a good question. Why are the prices always hidden on real estate now?
Agent or something?
Yeah, it's just contact agent. You know. Yeah,
quite often. You know, sometimes it's the buyer doesn't actually want it published because they don't want their workmates knowing what stupid price they pay for property or their family, you know. That's often the case. When the market sort of is slower, often it's the vendor not wanting to let people know because they're a bit embarrassed they didn't get what they wanted. So there's lots of reasons, and sometimes there's just a really reasonable reason. So there's always a percentage of prices that are, you know, price not disclosed. Most agents, I just send them a text, you know, and yeah, sure, a lot of them know me and they've got my number in their phone, but others, I'll even send a text to the ones I've never spoken to before, and I'm amazed at how many just send it straight to me. So that undisclosed. most of the time.
Yeah. I'm pretty keen to get out there and start checking out properties again because and doing some case studies for the group because and when I say case studies, not of yeah, I'm keen to go and look at property again and just kind of do a bit of window shopping.
What is actually at the moment, Veronica? You're out there buying properties daily. You know, we were even having our pre-chat the other day, and you got a phone call about and negotiating on a property as we spoke. What are some of the biggest challenges out there right now in buying a property?
I tell you one of them, and that is this belief that okay, the market's hard. It is a tough market. It's a horrible market for buyers, and buyers agents aren't actually enjoying it much either. Let me tell you. So face it up, it's horrible, right? Just deal with it.
Yeah.
It's fact. So what so many buyers, and it's logical, right? They go, okay, I know the answer is off market. That's what I'm missing. I'm missing access to off market. Now, this is one of the reasons the buyers agents are so busy because they go, oh yeah, come to us because we've got access to all the off markets. And you know, yeah,
isn't it free market though? Is it really off market? Isn't it? Because
a lot of them are free. There's only a handful that are off, truly off. Yeah. So most of them are pre-markets, right? Which basically means, well, okay, well, yeah, you want me to pay more than what it's worth, don't you? That might be, yeah, sure. And so sometimes you will pay more than what it's worth today. And I'm sort of factor in a couple of months growth and thinking, you know what, let's not wait for that. You know, well, let's make a call, right? But this is a challenge that people have that they look to. It's so hard to do this, right? So that must be the solution. It must be the magic pill, right? And that's what you got to be aware of. Another magic pill that I love this one. It's like, I know I'll buy something and I'll knock it down and rebuild because that must be easier than buying something that's already done. You know what I mean? When the market gets so tough that people actually think knocking down and rebuilding is easier, then that really is saying something about the market, right? But this is what we do. We go, God, this is not working. There's got to be some magic solution that I haven't thought of yet. And so you got to just start thinking there ain't no magic solution. This is a tough market.
Yeah.
So, and the other thing too is do your pricing research. Like, do that free course that we've got. One thing I don't have in that free course, I have to say, is that you got to index up. You got to actually track. CoreLogic have a free report every month, tells you basically what, you know, the hedonic index is doing every month. You know, the growth rates of every capital city of dwellings and houses and units, and index up by that amount, track it. And because you need to keep up to date with where prices are. If something sold in July, it's going to be worth more today. But how much more? So we use that index. You know, I find that really useful. Keep a tab of that. So that makes, and then you go, right, well, if it's going up 2% a month, which it is in Sydney at the moment, then, and I think, well, I'm not going to be able to find another one for 3 months. Well, then add in 3 months worth of growth, for God's sake, if it's good enough.
Wow.
You know, take someone else out, because if it's good enough, it's got to be, you've got to price it, you've got to do your research, you've got to make sure it's the right property, you've got to be certain you want to do this for this property, not out of FOMO, not because you've given up, not because you're just you're throwing your toys out of the cot and you want to give up. You got to be the right property, right? But if you have got the right property, be scientific about this. Be pragmatic about this, for God's sake. That's the only way you can buy in this market. And I don't mean throw money at it. I mean, be careful how you calculate it, but make sure that you do work it out before you start negotiating or before you start bidding.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is just be very clear on the value with some defined sort of value points, and kind of be comfortable with what you're willing to pay for that property. And
know your area, know your market, know your research, because otherwise you're just not going to you're not going to be competing. And also there are people that have done their research that are ready to go, that are like, oh, cool, this is worth X today. But I know I'm not going to find another one in 3 months. So I'm willing to pay an extra 6%. And then you're going in there all excited, thinking, oh my gosh, the agent said it's at 800,000. I can get it for 800,000. I'll go up to 810. And you've just wasted your time, because it's actually worth 850.
If you're lucky. Yeah, so I've been tracking how agents are underquoting, and it peaked in when was it peak? It peaked in May, I think, in our area at 33% on average over. The sale prices were 33% over guides, right?
Well,
Now it's down now.
on that.
It's down to 23. Well, that's nice.
On
It's
average,
only
so.
20.
So you got some at
Nice.
50, you got some at 2, you know, and then you got to work out the difference, right?
Oh, yeah.
So
And don't get me started.
let's finish up on. I'm going to combine a couple of questions here. So we've got So Luke, Mr. Moroney's asked about auction rates, about consumer confidence, which I'm going to bundle this up into one big question here. And then Tone's asked, as a buyer's agent in the West, what is a view on capital growth? So I'm going to bundle this up and say, okay, where do you sort of see with a lot of confidence we're still seeing in the market despite a lot of lockdowns? Where do you see I know people hate crystal balling, and we won't hold you to this. I'm not going to call you up and say, Veronica, you're wrong. But let's fast forward through 12 to 18 months. What do you think we look like?
Okay, so if I make a prediction, I run the risk of actually being getting a gong in my own Fool or Forecaster report.
Oh,
so I've got to be very careful on this one, right?
Yeah.
What I've seen in my 21 years of property, cycles go up, cycles go down, cycles go up, cycles go down in the areas in which we operate in my good deeds business, right? So if you look at it, that smoothed out over those 21 years, it goes like that. It does go up, right? It goes up, but if you sort of zoom in, it goes like this a bit, right? But the trajectory is up. Right now, I have said before that some people lose money in property. Yes, they do. If you hold anything in these areas for 21 years, you're not going to lose money, right? But you could have opportunity cost loss, you know, and who knows whether you can hold it for 21 years. Like if you don't buy with the long term in mind, you might find yourself having to sell it in less than that. So there's lots of reasons why you've got to be very careful what you buy, right? But so long term, yes, Sydney prices are going to go up. How steep that proportion is, or the steepness of the curve, who knows, right? I'm not going to even speculate. Will it come off the boil at one point? Hell yeah, it's going to come off the boil at some point.
I think it already is. But,
well, we're in a funny state of flux right at the minute, right? Yes, there's some mortgage data saying that basically less people are applying for mortgages, right? Okay, but maybe that's because they're going, well, what's the point? There's no stock on the market. Yeah. If people then come out of lockdown and start putting property on the market, what's that going to do to confidence amongst buyers, and will they go and apply for mortgages? Now, we don't know. So I had to say, I did actually say when we were in the first lockdown, I did say people could come out of this like frigging greyhounds chasing rabbits. You know, they could get me out of this house. It's too small. I need a space. And that's exactly what's happened. So who knows, right? It seemed improbable at the time. And equally improbable could be that we have this influx of stock and that actually kills the market, or influx of stock and that encourages the market. We don't really know. But we do know that interest rates are cheap, and they're cheap for a while. We do know there's now talk about some prudential measures and some, 6 times income and that sort of stuff. So there's going to be some handbrakes applied to try to pull back this racing train, runaway train. So I think that what we're looking at though is the Australian property market isn't a thing. There's lots of little micro markets. We're seeing people trapped in the country, people spending money on property. It's not sustainable on a whole scale, but if you buy a really good quality asset that will still get good buyer interest in a slow market, you're going to be okay. People buying crap, desperately trying to pile into this market, buying whatever, anything, they're not going to be okay.
We've gone full circle, I feel.
You can lose money in property.
You can. So Veronica, how can people? You've covered a whole range of stuff off for us, and it's been a wild journey. You've advocated for property. You've said don't get into property for certain people. It's been a wide ranging conversation. I've loved it. But I know we've covered off the academy. How can people get in touch with you? How can people learn more and get more Veronica in their world?
Well, I definitely encourage you to look at the academy. We are actually the mentoring group that I told you about. So we actually are starting a it's like a Facebook group, but not on Facebook, right? And it's different to a Facebook group because the punters can't answer the questions. They can tell stories and they can share their experiences, but only the experts can answer the questions. So if you're interested in joining a group like that, then you should send me an email at veronica@homebuyeracademy.com.au. Or fill out the survey too while you're at it. That'd be great. Send me an email, veronica@homebuyeracademy.com.au, and send me an email if you'd like to join a group like that, because it will have a small monthly fee. We haven't, we've got it in beta form at the moment, so our students have been in there. But so, you know, and I definitely don't want to take him away from this group because this is a really cool group, by the way. And I do can some of the questions, but actually more canning the answers. But this is a great group because it gets people out. But, you know, but there's another level of your journey where you're willing to invest in yourself and you want to invest in proper education. And that's really what we're providing. So if you're interested in that and joining that, I'm not here to sell that. It's not what I'm here for. I'm here because I just can't shut up. Then send me an email and I'll send you some details.
Yeah, and I really like what you said there. You have one source of truth for your education, and that is a dangerous place if you fall down the wrong avenue. But if you're lucky enough to find a good quality educator that's been able to build a portfolio, build hundreds and probably thousands of portfolios for clients, that one source of truth becomes very, very valuable. So yeah, I'm all for trying to cut out the crap that's in this industry, and I think you're doing an amazing job with that.
On that one source of truth, I don't believe I'm the one source either. I just want to be the magnet, if you like, to attract the multifaceted people out there that do have amazing knowledge and amazing skills and competencies and are prepared to share that with people who need it. That's what I want to be. I am not the one source of truth.
No.
But we want to have Camelot or whatever we want to call it, right? So that there's a place for the people that give a shit and the money isn't the primary goal for them. And that's what I want to create, so that people who are on the beginning of their journey will actually, it'll be easy. There's the big North Star. They'll know where to go to find this stuff out.
Yeah. And also listen to the podcast. I was listening to an awesome episode today about the fire guy. What's his name? Got his name. Matt. Is it Matt?
Firebug.
Yeah.
Matt. Yeah.
Firebug. Yeah. Aussie Firebug. He's great.
Yeah.
I love that. He's got a
cracking podcast as well. It's called not Sparky Fire. It's called Aussie Firebug.
Yeah. Aussie Firebug. That's it. Yeah. Yeah. He's awesome. Like he's done so well, and he shows all his portfolio, and this is a bit of an insight into what happens when we turn off the live. We just end up talking and talking. So let's wrap this one up, so we're not letting these poor people just sit here listening to us. But is there anything else that you would like to cover off, Veronica? Anything that we haven't covered off in this conversation? Or
the really scary thing is that, as I said to you when we first caught up off camera, I could go on for hours and you've probably worked it out. No, I think I've covered enough. I think everyone's probably an overload. Oh my God. So yeah, I'd love to come back sometime if you'd have me. And I've
got so many questions. I have all these questions lined up, and I'm like, it's too late now. I can't ask these ones. So I will definitely get you back on.
Cool. No, it's been fun. So I hope everyone else has enjoyed it.
Amazing. Let's do it. Okay. Well, see you guys later. Let's go.
Put a thumbs up down below if you want Veronica back. Put a thumbs up down below because we've got over 30 people still watching.
Whoa,
well, there
that's
you go.
pretty impressive.
Thumbs up, everyone. Great. Okay, cool. Let's go buy a property. See you guys later.
See you guys. Love it.